Hello and welcome to Aristeia 99. Today we're going to talk about things to think about when you're making a team. So I come primarily from the fighting game community when it comes to competitive gaming. Don't get me wrong, I was a total scrub. If there was the bottom tier, I would be there, and that's only because I showed up. So when I'm reading, some of the comments asking people, what do you want to see? What do you want to hear about? One that does come up is like, hey, how do you make teams? And so it's actually, simplest way, you open up the book, there's going to be 2 pre-made teams in there. Go ahead, play with that. But obviously, as time goes by, you're going to want to do more. So, generally speaking, this is kind of the process I tend to go through when I'm making a team for a game when we're playing Aristeia on the channel on Twitch. And full disclosure, both I and really the rest of the group, we're very much, there's a meta. We don't care. We are pretty much explicitly casual players. We're playing friendly games. We love trying dumb things periodically, just because why not? It's fun. It's interesting. And that's one thing you do want to keep in mind is the way you would play for competitive level gaming and the way you play for I'm just hanging out with friends, we're gonna have a good time, are actually fairly different when you get into that sort of thing, especially if you're just getting started. When you get into competitive gaming, the meta sort of exists for a reason, and it's not that it's objectively correct so much as it's commonly accepted, it's understood, and part of that also means it's well studied. So if you want to get into competitive gameplay, learning the meta and learning why X, Y, Z is the way it is right now, and that's always important, right now. That stuff can change on a dime, given a rules errata, given someone coming up with some crazy idea that, hey, that works, things like that. There's a lot of things that can upset a meta, and ideally, it should be something that changes periodically over time. It's not stagnant and unchanging, which is uninteresting, ultimately. Or it's really well balanced. Virtual Fighter, one of my favorites, was very well known for its character balance, since the top tier and the bottom tiers, as it were actually relatively close together compared to some other fighting games, where the top tier was an insurmountable challenge to the bottom tier. You don't want to, so what you want to think about is, how the heck am I going to play this game? How can I play this game? If you and your friends are the only players, congratulations, you have your own local meta. And are you doing AGL? Stuff like that. So if you're not, again, the competitive aspects and the competitive requirements become less relevant to you. And you're actually more free to experiment and play around and just goof around and have fun. Perfectly fine. So, with that out of the way, the first question you probably will want to ask yourself is, what's the scenario? The scenario informs a lot of the decisions that you're going to be making in terms of, well, who am I going to pick? If you're going to do a really fast game like Blitz, that's going to be a different team setup, generally speaking, than if you're doing a longer game such as Assault. Actually, I love both of those game formats. It just depends on how much time I've got. If you're playing Blitz, fast damage is going to be kind of important. The mobility is going to be kind of important. Assault gives you a little more time to let things bloom and develop, as it were. They need to develop the depth of flavor in some ways. You can afford to take your time. Blitz, you don't have that luxury. Carnage, you got to be real careful when you're playing something like Carnage or King of the Hill. My gosh, that's team selection's very important for all these scenarios and for all different reasons. Abilities that seem like no big deal when you're dealing with assaults suddenly become, oh my gosh, this is horrifying in King of the Hill. When you know the scenario, the next thing you kind of want to think about, how do I want to approach this? How do I want to play this game against this other person? Now, first and foremost, this does require you to have played enough to have a grasp of ways you like to play and ways you can play fairly well or pretty good for your area. And what characters kind of lend themselves to that. You're going to notice that some characters for you get you a lot of mileage in a lot of different scenarios. One of my really one of my most common picks personally is Valkyrie, because I like her in Blitz, because I can get around, but I can get to the other guy real easy. I like her in Assault because I got a lot of options. Carnage, good, I got a lot of choices with her, and I've got ways that I like to use her. King of the Hill, I adore her in King of the Hill because she can't be moved or displaced by your opponent. Fantastic. So you kind of look at things like that. I like Musashi, and I will pick Musashi, but he's actually not my favorite. He doesn't have enough control elements, which figures in heavily with a lot of the ways I prefer to play. So it's not that I won't pick him. It's just he's not necessarily my first choice. And there's going to be a lot of characters like that. You're going to find the more that you play, the more you've got certain characters you gravitate toward certain reasons. And this is a good time to kind of think about that. You're going to have list building in many strategy games, or even trading card games like Magic the Gathering, things like that, that I'm going to make this list and I'm going to ponder it and think about it, and this is what I'm going to play with, this is what I'm going to assemble for that. And Aristeia is really no different in that regard, just thankfully there's a lot fewer parts that you have to consider compared to some other games. So you want to think about that, and kind of ideally you want to pick a character or three. Think, worst comes worst, I think I can center myself around one of these characters for this team. If I get more than one of them, great, but I want at least one of them. This is kind of like your cornerstone, the maybe the foundation. This is a way to assemble a team. And if you get your first, if you get to pick first, so I'm picking somebody, and that's a great first start. And if you pick second, maybe you don't get them. So you go with one of the other characters you are looking at. And this is why knowing the characters is helpful, because it helps you adapt to the options that you have available to yourself. So, you got your first character, you got your second character, you're looking at your third and fourth. Now, there are different ways to look at how you want to assemble the team. So, one basic way is you look at the roles that they're going to fill. So, and in terms of the scenario. So, okay, I'm going to pick this character because they're going to kind of be my offense, they're going to be my tank. They're there to support the other, protect the other characters, either by taking damage or by dishing it out and proactively taking out threats. I'm going to pick this character because maybe they heal or they clear states or they move things around. They're support. And that can take, in Aristeia, that takes a lot of different forms, and not necessarily just what's on the character card, but also the tactics card. That's a huge part of the game. I got another character I'm going to pick here. They're really fast. They can get to objectives. That's fantastic. The scoring character is great to have in objective-based games. You can see kind of what I'm getting at. There's the scenario calls for what it needs to win, and you build a team. Maybe it's balanced around that idea, or maybe you're going all in on one part of it. Maybe you're trying to defeat and stalemate somebody. And this is where the I pick, you pick, I pick, you pick comes in, because you're going to have to adjust your team based on them, not just because they might pick someone that you want, but because they pick someone. It's like, I have to have a response to that. That can happen at times. There are some characters that when someone picks them, you kind of are better off, especially as a beginner, thinking, okay, I need a response to that. A great example is when I was teaching my friend Kenny to play. If I let him, especially early on, every team would have Musashi, every team would have Wild Bill, every team would have Major Luna. The fourth character almost didn't matter to him. He loved damage. And my goodness, if I was going to let him have 2 ranged damage dealers between Major Luna and Wild Bill, that's a tough choice for me as an opponent, because that means he's got a lot more freedom and flexibility to deal the damage than I would have in responding to it or protecting myself from it. Really tough to deal with. So I see him go for one. I pretty much had to go for the other. Likewise, if I got to go first, I might not go for Major Luna and Wild Bill. Maybe I'd pick Musashi because I know he liked Musashi a lot too. And certainly, if he went for the range characters, well, they've got that minimum range problem of theirs. So I could get in there, make sushi, and carry on. So that is something you do need to consider as well. Do you have wiggle room? You do need to have some wiggle room in that. You need to be flexible enough to say, hey, I want to be able to use this character, but if I can't, it's not the end of the world. When you're picking these characters, you might decide, I'm going to, they've all got roles, they all got functions. Now, they all have strengths and weaknesses as well. And how do I want to address that? How do I address that? Do I want my team to be balanced with the weaknesses and strengths kind of covering up each other? So for instance, okay, I've got, say, Major Luna in my team, so I'm good on ranged. Yeah, I think I'm going to take Maximus as well to protect the front, so people can't get to Major Luna, and Max doesn't really do much in the way of damage, so I'm going to use Major Luna to protect Max. And the reason you protect Max is, well, so we can protect other people. That's so they're complementing each other that way. Conversely, like my friend Kenny would do, he liked to double down on strengths. So Wild Bill and Major Luna, they would basically give him a lot of ranged damage, and therefore could make these very effective kill zones, where if I brought a character in and placed them in the wrong spot, then they were fairly sure to get lit up by Wild Bill than Major Luna. That's really tough. And, again, if he wants to have a little Musashi there to be the swordsman piranha, who, if that doesn't kill you, well, Musashi comes in, chops you up, and is off on his merry way. Trying to balance, trying to complement each other. You've got doubling down on strengths. Then, for me, what I kind of like to do is actually a little bit of, really what it gets down to is maybe more synergizing or a toolbox approach, where no one explicitly balances each other. It's like, my good points cover your bad points, so much as I get a bunch of tools to work with, and that gives me flexibility for situations. So, for instance, I love Valkyrie because she offers damage, she offers control through frostbite, and she actually, you can use her sort of as an off tank. So that gives her a lot of options, and her cards also kind of carry into that. It's like, okay, more control because I'm going to immobilize you from here, or I'm going to add in more defense cards, any number of things. I'm going to do a little more damage. So I look at her and I'm like, I got a lot of options that I can play with and different ways I can use her. She is one of my favorite characters because of that. Then, if I bring in, say, someone like Gata, Gata has no offense, period. Well, she has Contender, which she might as well be unarmed. But she does scoring, which is very important for some of the scenarios. But she also has an element of control where she dazzles. So I can have her go and score, I can go and dazzle someone, and often essentially negate someone's long-ranged abilities, which is really important not only for ranged offense, which was on the receiving end of a lot, but also ranged support from enemies. Because that's really hard to deal with too if you're not thinking about it. And someone who's just going there, oh, you're healed, oh, all your states are gone, is every bit as dangerous as Musashi, but in a different way. Picking Gata? Sure, we'll pick Gata. And kind of see what I'm getting at. Major Luna, yep, she can absolutely shoot you, which is what Kenny loved. Shoot you in the face. And I would have that as an option, but then I would also be using suppressive fire. I'm slowing you down. I like to be control focused. I think anyone who's watched the stream for a while, anyone who's watched the series for a while will note that about me. I like control options. I'm looking for ways to layer abilities. I will have gaps. Like, okay, maybe I don't have the best damage. Maybe I don't have the best defense. Things like that. But I've got a lot of options in terms of what I can do at any given point. And that versatility is what I personally enjoy. Someone like Keep a Hooligan likes doing theoretical teams at times where he'll look at characters and he'll think and he'll ponder, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? So I end up, one of his favorite teams that he's come up with was actually Team Poison. So there was Dart, there was Bachman, there was Hammerhead, and the last character, I can't remember who that was actually. One of the other people with poison as an option. And that was really the thing he was doing. He was trying to toss poison around. Poison being dangerous because it is essentially uncontested damage unless you can deal with a state. So, he did that. I actually got to play against Team Poison. I did manage to win. But it gave me the idea later on. It's like, you know what? I'm going to swap this one character out and I'm going to put in Musashi. This will be Team Fuku, because you're dealing with a poisonous fish, Japanese, sure, why not? And that actually worked out pretty darn well, just with one change. It was different than his, and I'm not going to say it was better, but that building around a theme of what we're going to do. Bonsai Zap had the horrendous, I can't believe I'm having to try and play through this, Team Taunt. Prism, Maximus, Senior Massacre, and Prism, Maximus, Senior Massacre, and I don't even remember who the last character was. in Teen Taunt, but you kind of get the idea of what he was going for there. And when nobody can properly respond to anything, especially in this King of the Hill, it is utterly crippling. It is amazing how effective that team was. And it's the sort of thing that, again, you can think about. How do I want to do this? Is this going to be a high contact team where I am absolutely going to be going into every conflict I can? Is this going to be a team where it's heavily controlled? Like, okay, we're going to make sure that whatever they want to do, they can't do. Are you trying to look for little built-in synergies between characters? There's an obvious one between Bachman and Hammerhead because of one of Hammerhead's tactics. He gets more poison if Bachman's on the team. Fiddler and Gaia have similar, although not quite as explicit, it's more implicit synergies because of how the tactic cards are worded and minions are worded. But you still have these very obvious synergies going on. But then you might have something that's a little less obvious. When you get a character like, say, Hexer and Gaia on a team. Well, Hexer can move objects, can move an obstacle. That minion's an obstacle. Oh, I can make a wall right here. Or I can make a gauntlet that's just going to slow the heck out of everything. Or I'm just going to clear the way right now so everyone else on my team can move through, but then I'm going to close it back up. Lots of crazy stuff like that. I'm going to take a character with healing and pair them with Maximus. And the other two people on my team might never see death. They'll never go to the infirmary. It's a possibility. The Chinese, the Yujin characters. So you've got Tao Wu, you've got Bichet, you've got Li Gong, you've got Cosmo. They all play with smoke. They're not even really in the same expansions for the most part. But the commonality of smoke brings them together for a team that gives you some really interesting things to think about. So it's kind of these are some of the things you want to kind of look at and think about. What's the scenario? How do I win? What do I want to, do I want to focus on anything? Do I want to have a balanced team? Do I want to focus on my strengths? Do I want to give myself lots of options, kind of regardless of the other aspects? So that's kind of the process that goes into thinking about teams, more than giving you simple, obvious solutions. And I apologize for that. But honestly, as Aristeia continues, 99 continues, we're actually starting next week. We're going to actually be going over simple synergies based on the pre-made teams, both for the core sets, but also with the expansions that came out after. So this is actually a quick move from 99 to 101. So thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.